Hi everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of our show, Popcorn Feed, here at My Comic Universe.
Welcome back.
I'm your host, Steve.
I'm your other host, Brian.
Today we'll be talking about Season 2 of Westworld, the AntMan and the Wasp, and Phases 3 and 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But first, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media.
Those are some very interesting topics that we have for today's episode, and do not forget to stick around for our Blu-ray and digital download recommendation, which will be at the end of this episode. Let's jump right into Westworld Season 2.
Yes. Westworld is finally back with its second season. It returned last month on April 22nd, and as of right now, we're already 4 episodes into the new season. Just like Season 1, Season 2 is also going to consist of 10 episodes, and it's already been renewed for Season 3 as well. What do you think so far? What do you like about Season 2?
Well, you know what? So far with Season 2, I do like that they've been doing a great job of bringing back the characters, and now we get to see a new side of what's happening in the story. I mean, obviously in Season 1, not to spoil anything, if you haven't seen Season 1, we highly recommend the show, Season 1, and even the new season, Season 2, but it was nice to see some development with the characters and find out what was going on after the rise of the hosts into this new set phase of their plan, which is basically to rise up and take over and conquer, basically. They've already done the rise up part, now it's time to conquer. Definitely a cool new twist.
It is. I really enjoy the direction that they're heading in with the hosts rising up and revolting against the guests. And now all of the hosts are searching for new meaning and new purpose now that their narratives are in their own hands, basically. They can decide who they want to be and what they want to do. We're getting a lot of backstory on the actual creation of Westworld itself, and
they have been doing a great job at that.
They've slowly been revealing that Westworld has a secret purpose that we are only just now learning about in each new episode. And so, I think that adds a new level of mystery to the whole show. As some people may or may not know, and before I say anything else, there will probably be some spoilers in this.
Very true, folks.
In our very first episode, we discover that the hosts have been tracking the experiences of the guests.
Right.
And not only that, but Westworld has been cataloging the DNA of the guests as well. And I believe it's the second movie, the second Westworld movie, where they have that same storyline. And what they end up doing in that is they take that DNA and they start to create hosts that are essentially clones of the guests and putting them out into the world.
Interesting.
Yes.
Michael Crichton really loved that theme of cloning. He really exploited that a lot throughout all of his written works. So I could see this really playing out for this show, and like you said, for the second film. I mean, I hope they keep on going down this road, so when we do reach the end of this season, we do get the full circle meaning of what's going on with William and Bernard and Dolores and Maeve as well.
Right.
Now, speaking of all these these characters, these are all the main players in Westworld. Let's kind of get a little bit into William, what he's up to now in Season 2. So William basically, he's still looking for this maze. He's still on this game. He's searching. And, of course, we see him being constantly taunted by Ford.
Yes, exactly. Since the very first episode, we do discover that William is one of the few people that survived the massacre at the end of the first season.
Yeah, that's right.
And at one point in the first episode, he's confronted by a young Robert Ford, host, who basically explains to William that a brand new game that's been designed just for him has commenced, and this game has no rules. It's exactly the kind of game he's been wanting this whole time.
Right, and now he's on this quest, basically, to complete this game that he's been searching for and waiting for. And I feel like because of the interactions in Season 1 between Ford and William's character, I feel like this was something that was pre-planned even before the parks even were in existence. Like, I feel like Robert set him up from the beginning and knew he's gonna want to be that rough and tumble. He's gonna be the one guy that wants to go to the extreme. in the park. So I feel like Ford set him up from the beginning and knew, I'm going to program him something special.
If it isn't very good planning, could it be possible that Ford might still actually be around and that he didn't die at the end of the first season?
It's very possible.
And that's the topic of today's discussion. Do you guys think that Ford is still alive and lurking behind the scenes, or is he gone for good?
Yeah.
Now, I think that there have been a few instances throughout the season so far that suggest he might still be alive. In the second episode, we see that William has basically sought the help of El Lazo, who is no longer played by Laurence, but in this episode he was played by...
Giancarlo Esposito?
Yes, Giancarlo Esposito.
Oh, yes.
That's right. And basically, he communicates a message to him from Ford, telling him that William has to complete the game on his own.
On his own, right.
And after delivering that message, Alonzo and the rest of his gang, they basically commit suicide to prevent William from recruiting them. So that's our first glimpse of Ford still having some kind of influence on what's going on in Westworld.
Definitely. It surely is his connection.
We also see another message to William through Lawrence's daughter this time, basically telling him that one good deed doesn't redeem him. And this is in reference to the fact that William and Laurence both overpowered the Confederados and killed Major Craddock, who had taken over Lawrence's town.
Right. Yeah, I remember that from that episode.
Exactly. And we also make two very large discoveries in the fourth episode as well that might have some impact on this whole question of ours. First, we learn that William was working to recreate the consciousness of James Delos in a host body in order to achieve immortality. And at this point, we do learn that James Delos is long dead.
Yes.
And that it's taken... I believe William even says they've tried the experiment 149 times and it's failed every single time. And eventually William just gives up on the experiment. But through a series of flashbacks, we learn about this experiment and we learn that it failed repeatedly. And even now, without him actually there, like, he still obviously has a major influence.
He definitely does. So let us know in the comments below what you think about if Ford is still pulling the strings from behind the scenes, or if he's a major player in all of this. All right, so our next big topic of our episode today is Ant-Man and the Wasp.
That's right, guys. We're going to be talking about
Wasp.
The sequel to Ant-Man, 2015's Ant-Man. And so far, it looks like this movie is going to be taking place before Avengers Infinity War and just after the events of 2016's Captain America.
The Civil War movie, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Captain America Civil War.
Well, see, you know what? They did a very good job in Black Panther of picking the story back up right after Civil War for T'Challa's character.
That's right.
That I feel like they need to do this for maybe another character, and I believe Scott Lang, Ant-Man, is perfect to pick his character up and not have to blend him in like they did with everybody else in the Infinity War movie. So I'm really, really excited. Ever since they announced this back in 2015 that we were going to get a sequel to the Ant-Man movie, which I think they announced it like a week or two after the release of the first film.
The first one was successful.
Very successful for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then, of course, the filming's been going on all of last year between August and November. Well, not all of last year, but between August and November of 2017. What are you excited about, Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Well, I'm definitely excited to see Ant-Man and the Wasp teaming up to
That'll
begin
be
with.
Really cool.
I'm definitely looking forward to the new characters, and that's going to be something we're going to get into a little deeper. The new characters. There's quite a few new characters coming to this film.
There are.
A couple new villains.
A couple recurring characters as well.
A couple recurring characters from the first film as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure that a large part of this film is going to have to deal with the quantum realm as well.
I believe it is, and we're going to be visiting that and possibly some of Hank Pym's theories about the quantum realm. The recurring characters, of course, Paul Rudd returns as Scott Lang, Ant-Man, and then
Evangeline Lilly comes back as Jane Van Dyne.
That's correct, and she's going to be the Wasp in this one. If you remember the post-credits scene from Ant-Man, you know, Hank takes her into his laboratory and says, well, me and your mother were working on a suit for you, and we never finished it, but I think it's about time we finish it and you give it a test.
Just to correct myself, that was Hope Van Dyne that I was referring to.
Oh, that's right. Janet is...
I was thinking of Janet, the original Wasp.
The original Wasp.
The original
which, by the way, she is going to be making an appearance in this film.
That's right. That's right. She is one of the new characters that we're going to be discussing
And who's
today.
going to be playing her, Steve?
None other than Michelle Pfeiffer.
Catwoman herself.
Catwoman herself, yes.
Ooh, so we're getting a crossover, a little DC Marvel crossover here.
We sure are.
That's pretty cool. What about some of the... now, there's several other characters. We cannot forget who's the big baddie in all of this. Who's our villain for this, man?
Well, we have two villains.
We've got
not
two,
just one,
right?
But two, yes. We've got Sonny Birch, who's going to be played by Walton Goggins.
Yeah.
And we also have Ghost.
Uh-huh.
Those are
So,
the two main villains in this one.
is Simon Birch, are you familiar with his character, Steve?
I did a little research.
Okay.
I do know that he first appeared in the Marvel Comics back in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
He originally was an antagonist of Iron Man's, not Ant-Man's.
Right.
I have an army. We have a Hulk.
That's correct.
Yes, yes. His character was short-lived in the comics, but he does have a connection to cross-technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely reason enough to give him, this opportunity to be on screen for this sequel.
And if you're not familiar with Cross Industries or Cross Technologies, that was Darren Cross's company. And if you're not familiar with Darren Cross, he was the villain in the first film.
That's right. And let's talk a little bit about Ghost now. Ghost is another character who first appeared in the comics as an enemy of Iron Man's.
Very true.
Not Ant-Man's.
And so you're aware, Ghost made the first appearance in Iron Man number 219, which came out in June of 1987.
His character was the owner of the suit that allowed him to turn invisible, and on top of that, he was also a very talented master hacker and proficient with all sorts of dangerous weaponry. But in Ant-Man and the Wasp, the character is going to undergo a gender swap thanks to the casting of Hannah John Kamen.
I saw this, and this is a big change for the character, for sure.
Yes, definitely. Based on the trailer, it looks like she's going to develop the ability to phase through objects after coming into contact with one of Pym's technologies. Mm-hmm. And at this point, her ultimate goals are still unknown. We don't know what she's after as of right now.
He's one of those characters in the Marvel Universe that's kind of like an Ebony Maw character in a way. This kind of like sinister, kind of sneaky kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Never really wanted to get in confrontational fights, but would always kind of sneak his way in to like cause mischief or chaos for Iron Man and the Avengers. We can't forget about Laurence Fishburne being in the movie.
That's right.
As Goliath.
Yes, I did want to mention him as well. He is known for his work on the Goliath Project with
right.
Hank Pym. And
yes.
that was the project that allowed him to grow to a size of 21 feet, as we discovered in the most recent trailer that featured Laurence Fishburne.
My record, 21 feet.
His first appearance came in Avengers number 32 in September of 1966. And of course, he used to work for Stark Industries and Tony Stark before he worked with Hank Pym. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing was he worked for their plan and research development division. So he was already coming up with these interesting new technologies and biochemical compounds. So that's how he came up with this compound that made him grow in size and shrink in size. Mm-hmm. But what had happened was Hank Pym was stuck in his Goliath form. But he was only stuck at about 10 foot, and he couldn't figure out how to get back to normal size. So he goes to Dr. Bill Foster, and the two of them work together on the serum to bring him back to normal size, which is really cool. So that'll give you a little more background.
Absolutely.
So who's the other character that you mentioned, Steve, that you wanted to talk about?
We already talked about her briefly, but Janet Van Dyne.
Yes.
Yes, played by Michelle Pfeiffer. She was the original Wasp and Hank Pym's wife, and we know that she has been lost in the quantum realm for about a decade now.
Right.
And it's rumored that aside from Ant-Man and the Wasp facing off against Sonny Birch and Ghost, that the main focus of the film is going to deal with their rescue mission of going into the quantum realm to rescue and bring Janet back to the real world. Well, there's definitely a lot to look forward to when we get to see Ant-Man and the Wasp when it hits theaters on July 6th. Mm-hmm. Which character are you guys most excited for?
Let us know in the comments below who you're really looking forward to in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And also, let us know if you're excited for the movie all around.
Exactly. Let us know what you guys think.
Now that we're talking about all these Marvel Cinematic Universe films, we gotta talk about the transition between Phase 3 and Phase 4. I'm really excited for the next phase. So, Steve, why don't you tell me a little bit about what's going to happen between these phases?
Absolutely. As of right now, as you mentioned, Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to be the last film released this year that's a part of Marvel's Phase 3. Next year's Captain Marvel and Avengers 4 are going to be the last two films to close out Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which leaves us wondering what lies ahead for the Marvel Cinematic Universe once we transition into Phase 4.
So, speaking of that, what are you excited for Phase 4? What are you expecting for Phase 4, Steve?
Well, I know that Kevin Feige mentioned that they have an extensive plan for what lies ahead after Avengers 4 comes to a close. I know that the first film to be released that's a part of Phase 4 is going to be the sequel to 2017's Spider-Man Homecoming. And we also know that we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Which will be really cool.
Yes, the Black Widow movie and the Eternals movie to look forward to as well. From 2020 to 2022, there's going to be 9 films released. That's per year. And, you know, it's definitely exciting stuff. It's exciting to see what lies ahead.
Now, last thing we want to talk about in our episode today is our recommendation, which is, of course, Black Panther.
That's right. This month's recommendation is Marvel's Black Panther, directed by Ryan Coogler and starring Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan. Black Panther is about T'Challa, the king of Wakanda, and his rise to power in the isolated and technologically advanced African nation. Before long, his claim to the throne is challenged by a vengeful outsider who, as a child, suffered the consequences of T'Challa's father's mistakes. We recommend Marvel's Black Panther because it gives audiences a brand new take on the superhero genre, while introducing us to exciting new characters that are both lovable and complex. This is a never-before-seen side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we know audiences and fans alike won't be disappointed.
I really enjoyed this film. This is definitely on my top 5 favorite Marvel films of all time. I love the performances by Chadwick Boseman and by Michael B. Jordan. And of course, the soundtrack by Kendrick Lamar was phenomenal. Well, that's a lot of stuff to cover in an episode.
We sure did
Westworld
cover a lot.
Season 2. Ant-Man and the Wasp. The Phase 4, Phase 3 transition. And of course, Black Panther, our recommendation for this episode.
That's
Don't
right.
forget to follow us here at Popcorn Feed and at My Comic Universe.
Exactly. That does it for us today, guys. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. I'm your host, Steve.
And I'm your host, Brian.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.